Hello, good evening. My name is Aieden. I haven't been back for a while, but I'm glad to be here tonight. So my first poem is about my November child. He's really a surprise because we weren't expecting for a baby number two. And then everyone was just like saying, I have two sisters who are born in November, a nephew that's born in November, two grandparents born in November. So there were like too many November children in our family. So everyone was like saying, oh my God, it's going to be a November child. You're going to be in trouble. I'm like, well, I'll write a poem about this child that seems to be a troublemaker already before it's born. So my poem is about my November child. The best people I know are born on the month of November. I have known them all my life, and I would not change every memory I have of them, for they gave the colors on the tapestry of my life. My child, you are truly blessed to be born under such a lucky star, to have my November sisters guiding and lighting your path. They will teach you the ways of the world, for they have traversed the roads of life in which you will be born into. Take their hands, my November child, and allow their wisdom to always guide your way back into my love. The strong emotions that live within you, the silent moments you need to withdraw within, such are the turmoils you will encounter born under the scorpion star. The stubbornness that will be your nature will be the same strength you need, although at times you will feel like it's a weakness. Just remember, you are only stronger where you are most vulnerable. Just ask my sisters who are born as November children, just like you are. I love you, and I can't wait for the moment that I will see you, my beautiful November star. So hopefully he won't be a troublemaker. So my next one is actually a short story. It's entitled, Where Do You Find Your Strength? A man met a woman on a road less traveled. She was walking slowly as she carried the weight of her world on her shoulders. He stopped to assist her, but she kindly refused, saying, "This is my burden that I gladly want to bear." "Where do you find your strength?" he asked her, and unperturbed she answered him back, "I am a woman, and strength finds me." He continues to stare at her in amazement as she looks adversity straight in the face, undeterred by every roadblock it places in each path she takes. She is a mother, a friend, and a lover. She is all that and more, and so giving up was never in her vocabulary. On a small island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, her story starts just like any other story. It starts with an ordinary woman, striving for more than what is given to her by fate, by destiny. She was born into poverty, but she is determined to not lay in the bed that was made for her. At 18, she was a runaway. She left her home to offer her services to a distant relative who, with good fortune, married into a powerful family. Her services took a form of servitude to her aunt, who became a governor of that province. That family gained their wealth by owning a lumber factory and having vast lands and forests. And like any other political family, they have become a dynasty. Holding power for generations in their province, never once have they lost their power to another family. And this is where she found herself at 18. She learned as best she could from her aunt. Her job gave her foresight, planning 10 steps ahead of her competition. In that country, democracy is a word used but never really placed into practice. She had learned subtle vote-buying techniques and the art of reading people and a room. She had learned all this at the tender age of 18. As she grew up in this environment, she never had to face hunger or insecurity, but such comfort came with a price. She was always at her aunt's beck and call. Her behaviors were scrutinized, for what she does in public will reflect onto her aunt's image. She has been used as an advantage for a political alliance, but that is where she had put her foot down and refused. She gave up everything, including her freedom, but she was not ready to trade in one political cage for another. She witnessed the people power where a country overthrew a tyrant without shedding bloodshed. She was in the middle of that political turmoil, and at the age of 30, she chose to leave it all behind and married a man in secret, but a man she chose for herself despite her aunt's objections. She left that political world behind without sparing it a glance and had survived. With all her planning, adversity stepped in. She appeared in the shape of global warming, affecting their farm business, and the harvest was poor for several years. The bank was hounding their doorstep, and the risk of losing their home was high. Without her husband's knowledge, she had a decent amount of money for her nest egg, money she knew she would need one day. And without him knowing her plans, she arranged for papers for an interview at the U.S. Embassy. In her mind, the farm was not where her daughters would gain their future. It was unsustainable. When all hope was lost for their farm, she offered her husband a second choice, to leave the country behind and start as immigrants in a foreign land. He agreed to go through with the interview, and with some stroke of luck, they got a tourist visa. But her husband was a proud man. He refused to give up on his farm and risked everything in a foreign country. So to prove him wrong, she went to the US by herself, took random odd jobs, made money, and sent everything over to the Philippines. And before her 3 months was up, she came back to the Philippines. He saw how much she had earned in 3 months and decided that the risk was worth it. As he saw his funds dwindling from a worsening turn of events on his farm, he set aside his pride for his family. With a difficult decision, husband and wife decided that it was best to separate. Her husband becomes an undocumented man in a foreign country, and to try and earn money. She said that America is not a kind place for the undocumented, so it would not be a good place to raise their daughters. It was best to try and find ways to get legal documentation first before bringing the whole family. She said her goodbyes to her husband, vowing to take care of their daughters until they finish and graduate college. Foresight comes with a sacrifice, and strength found her that day in that airport in the Philippines with her 3 daughters, strength that allowed her to carry on both the task of a mother and a father to her 3 young daughters. In an entirely separate continent, in the highlands of Poland, it was the middle of winter, and a woman was struggling to keep wood burning on the stove. While her son slept soundly on the couch, she thought to herself, this year would be another winter without expecting any money from her husband. She was planning ways to keep the house, pay her bills, and keep them fed. She knew there was one way to give her son a better future, and it was not going to be in this country. She decided that she would find a way to make up the money to bribe the Polish officials to give her papers to travel as a tourist in the US. In that way, she can take her son away from their current fate and give them a chance at a better future. That year, she turned her home into a bed and breakfast, welcoming tourists from all over Europe. She was open during the summer when it was peak season, and closed during winter when in the highlands the weather could get very harsh. Then she would travel to Germany during the grape harvesting season and work in the vineyards while she leaves her son with family in Poland. One day, she heard that Russian gold was a commodity people were looking for, and across the border, they were selling it for a cheap price. She smuggled gold from Russia to Poland to sustain her family and to save up for a tourist visa to the US. Adversity came to her that day on the bus that she was taking, wearing the guise of the Russian police, who were instructed to do a random search. While they were still being stopped and the police were interrogating the driver, she opened a small slit in the seat and stashed away her gold before everyone started disembarking. The police looked through their bags and scanned the bus, but with a stroke of luck, they didn't find anything amiss. After the search was over, the Russian police allowed them to cross over the border. Strength found her that day in that Polish bus crossing the Russian borders. After years of saving, she was able to bribe the embassy for documents to cross over oceans and start over in a new country. As he learned her story, he continued to look at her in awe, at such courage and such strength, for never was a man as strong as the woman he is facing now, for she is a lover, a friend, and a mother. Her strength transcends generations, and her children and her children's children will continue to reap the bounties of her sacrifices. But there will be no song to laud her bravery, no medals to be hung in her honor, but her success exceeds that of any merit this world could give her. So, woman, where do you find your strength? Her answer would always be, it is strength that will find me. Thank you.